I thought it was a random check. I was kind of nervous about it, but I thought I'll calm down. It'll be over soon. They'll ask me some questions and I'll be on my way.
Landing in Detroit shouldn't be any different from landing in Los Angeles and New York. That said, sometimes the inspections in those smaller, less highly traveled destinations, sometimes the inspections there are far more rigorous than they would be in the major ports of entry.
Then they pulled me into the Homeland Security section. One of the officers said, "This guy looks iffy," and they were immediately very angry and loud, and it was at that point I just thought, this is not normal, this is not something that happens to everyone.
This is a subjective process, and inspectors in particular will tell you, and feel quite proud to tell you, that their gut instincts are very important and that their experience over many years of doing this work is something that they rely on.
They looked through my bags and pulled out a novelty hat that I had. I don't know how it got in there, if my mum put it in. And they immediately said, "Well, have you ever worked for the FBI?" And I just sort of laughed at them and said, no, I don't work for the FBI. It's just a novelty hat. I think they thought I was a terrorist. They went through my footage on my camera. We had stuff from Japan on it, and they sort of looked oddly at that because I was filming around the airport and things like that. I had a little address book with me of all my friends where I would be going and with their phone numbers, so they began calling those people. It was more about that I knew a lot of these people through YouTube, and that was something that they didn't comprehend. They were asking me if I'd actually met these people before in real life.
Then they started questioning me. All of these questions about Dan and his occupation in Australia. Very, very specific things. How many dogs does he have? They just asked me all these random questions, rapid fire, and it was really nerve-wracking. I didn't think anything could go wrong at that point.
They actually came up to me and said, "Good news almost, we no longer think you're a terrorist." And they were looking more into the fact that I may just disappear into America and work there illegally. They were going, from one idea, one suspicion to another suspicion, and they were just all over the place. And it was almost, at a point they were arguing with themselves about, what are we going to pin him on? They approached me and said, you're going home for not having permanent ties to Australia. I was really confused about what they meant. I'm a citizen. My whole family and everything I know is in Australia. Is that considered a tie? And they just kind of laughed it off and said no, and no one could really explain to me what that actually meant.
The judgment that the inspector makes at the port of entry is absolute. There is no formal appeal from that decision. And the person who's coming, the applicant, really doesn't have any rights.
I found out that he was going to be deported, and something clicked in my head. And I started thinking, I really, really wanted to see him. I really wanted to see him.